you're like a little kid again. You're just painting inside the lines, right? Hey everybody, welcome to my personal studio. Today we're going to be doing a project called silk screening. It's such a great process because you can do repeat pulls of the same image. It's kind of hard to describe, but let me show you what I mean. You know I absolutely love skulls, and here I have an image of a skull, which I have on the silk screen. I have these professionally made. And then I can do repeat images of this same skull. I do it on artwork, I do it on t-shirts and all kinds of things. But a little more simple, I've done this word dream. I placed this on a silk screen, and you can see here, I just have the word dream, but I flipped the screen around, and I started to create sort of just interesting, sort of almost geometric sort of shapes. But it's just this word dream is on my silk screen, and it's really simple to do. We're gonna do a different process over here. One of the probably easiest references that you'll probably know is the art of Andy Warhol. So, you know the Campbell soup cans that he did, or the pictures of Marilyn, or Elvis Presley with the gun? All those were all silk screens, right? So he would have these massive silk screens made. So we're gonna be doing the same process, but we're gonna really dumb it down. We're gonna really make it simple. The things that we will need though are these silk screens. You can get these at fine art supply stores. They come pre-stretched. Basically it's silk on a wooden frame, so we're going to need that for the screen. The other thing we're going to need are these squeegees. Now, this is a silk screen squeegee, which is very, very important. Again, not really that expensive, but you can't use your shower squeegee. It's just not going to work. The next thing, we can just get a multitude of colored inks. These are specialty inks, and if you look on it, it says screen printing ink. So make sure you do that. You can't use your regular acrylic or any type of other ink or latex paint or something like that. It's going to be too thin. There's a certain viscosity to this paint, and it's really sort of, it's almost like sour cream. It's just so beautiful, and you'll see when we start to pull the ink how nicely it works. And then a few other things, some masking tape and things of that nature, and then there's a thing called screen filler, which we'll get to in a second. Let's get to the image that we're going to do. For me, I'm going to start with something really cool today. I have this this image of this sort of like this fishbone kind of thing. I think it's kind of wacky. It's kind of quirky. You know, I think this would look really cool on a T-shirt. And we're going to do this. I just got this off the internet. You can get a gazillion images. What we want is something, as you can see here, something really simple, just with sort of big, thick, heavy lines. I wouldn't get anything too intricate and too complicated because I think these sort of like solid images sort of work best. And they're going to be really simple and fun. So from here, guys, we have our image, lay it flat on the table. We're going to get our silk screen. We're going to place it on top. And then from here, we're going to get a permanent marker and trace it out. At this point here, when we're doing it, don't move the screen around. You know, if you want, you can tape the screen to the table so it remains still. And then with your marker, trace the lines like a coloring book. Can't be easier. And with this stage here, I mean, you don't have to be perfect, right? Again, I like it because this image is kind of like loose. It's a bit of an interpretation of a fish scale, you know. If you want, you don't have to use a photocopy. If you're so inclined, you could write your name, spell a word, do some sort of funky saying, you know, a little inspirational quote. But the main thing is that you want to just first draw it out with this permanent marker so that we can see where our screen fluid's going to go. And you can see I'm not being perfect with this, right? The thing with a lot of work that I like to do, I don't like to be so perfect and precise about it. I kind of think when you are working and you are doing this, I like things to be a bit quirky and wacky. Also, I like to experiment a lot, and sometimes, you know, just things sort of happen, and when they happen, I'm like, wow, that's really cool, and then push it further. That's sort of where you start to experiment and just sort of explore new avenues and new things. So from here, guys, that's what it looks like, right? That's simple. So from here, we can put this image aside, and now we have our screen so we know exactly what we're going to do. So here comes the interesting part. From here, what we want to do, guys, is we just want to raise our screen up just a small amount. And then with our screen filler, right, it's a specialty product called screen filler, we're going to paint out the negative parts of the screen. So when we do screen, all the negative space, so everything that's white, as you can see, we're going to put the screen filler in. So that means that no ink will be able to pass through. So we'll have a positive image like the black as you see here. So it's really kind of simple. Let me grab some brushes and we can get underway. So for this project, you want to use, or you want to have some really soft brushes, okay? So in this case, I would sort of invest in a bit of a better brush. You don't want to have really stiff brushes. The screen filler is quite thick, and you want it to go on very heavy and thick. So here we go. Yeah, so you can see here that the screen filler, it's almost like this clay color, and when we paint it on, it's going to completely block the screen. Now, with this, you're going to need a few coats. You can see when we're putting it on here. So basically, it's just clogging the screen. And for this part here, this is where you want to be a little more exact. Once the screen filler hits into the screen, it's there. I mean, it can be washed out after the fact, but you don't want to start washing out your screen now. So just sort of maybe start with some smaller brushes and then fill in with larger brushes after. The great thing with this kind of stuff is that you kind of you get to create one-of-a-kind pieces. And often for myself, when I'm out either in stores or at trade shows or something of that nature, I'm seeing all this great stuff, and you get inspired by it, and you sort of think, well, either how can I be inspired by that, recreate it, or interpret it in my own way. And then again, you know what? It's all about just going to the art supply store. I do that quite a bit, and just see what's new on the market, and then get inspired. Think, well, that's cool. I could use this, or maybe I could do that with something. And don't be afraid just to sort of mess around, right? Again, we can never be too precious about what we're doing, because if you are, then you're just really always going to be disappointed by what you do. These projects like this that are a little more sort of time-consuming, it's almost like meditation, right? Some people sort of do yoga, Some people can actually sit there and meditate. I can't meditate because if I were to sit there in a meditative pose, I would just drive myself crazy and want to do something like this. I kind of like the slow pace of this, and you have to really think about what you're doing, but at the same time, you don't have to, but you have to be conscious enough of what you're doing that you don't have to be worrying about work and what your next mortgage payment is, or that your car needs new repairs, or the ceiling in the kitchen is cracking and from a leak, which is my situation right now. So you know what I mean? So you just kind of just sit here and you just kind of get lost in it. For me, it's almost like when I paint a room, like literally physically rollering a room. I love painting because when you're doing that, you're just doing a repeat motion, and you kind of get lost in it, if that makes sense. When we're painting with the blockout fluid, first I like to go on the interior and sort of get that going. Now, we don't have to paint out the entire screen. You'll kind of see once I get most of the fish done, we'll sort of paint maybe a few inches outside the fish, and then with the rest of the screen, we can just use masking tape to sort of block it out. So no need to worry about painting the whole screen out. That's just going to be a huge effort. But for now, the best thing I always like to do is work the inside out. That way your hand doesn't get in there and start smudging around, because you really want to be quite conscious about what you're painting and quite deliberate about it, because like I said, if we get the blocking fluid inside of these areas here, it's going to really mess us up. So be somewhat delicate about it, but not overly fussy. So with this process here, as you can see, I'm painting it on. And the block fluid dries relatively quickly. And I'll want to do at least 2 coats of this. You'll see as we go further on, you can see actually here, even when I'm painting, see these different colors? That sort of lighter color is where we don't want to be, but we want the screen to be blocked so it's completely opaque. So we're absolutely sure that no ink will press through and go onto the paper or the fabric below. So after you've put your blockout fluid on, and if you start silk screening and you notice that some of the ink is pressing through and it's sort of bleeding under, by all means you can wash the ink out and you can reapply this filler, and again just put another generous coat on exactly as you did, and that should completely solve the problem. But that's why I like doing it really well the first time so that you don't run into problems down the road. If you want to remove the screen filler and say use the screen for something else, there is another product on the market that cleans this off. This actually is water-based, so you don't have to worry about getting on your hands, whatnot. But once it dries on the screen, it becomes permanent in that sense, because you'll see when we start screening, we'll be washing our screen out with water to change the colors. But the screen filler, this block fluid, will not wash out. Okay, so from here I have the kind of the overall sort of fish done. Now, I'm going to get a wider brush, and again, like I said, you really want to have some really nice soft bristle brushes, okay? So again, these aren't overly expensive, but they're not really stiff, because you can see here with this nice wider brush, I'm going to be painting on sort of the thicker areas, and then sort of going all around the fish. And this is where you want to lay on that nice generous coat, right? And from here, paint out a few inches. We don't, like I said, we don't have to paint out the entire screen, but I'm going to say we need to paint out at least to there, leaving about maybe 2 inches around the screen, and that'll be taped off with masking tape. Okay, so the screen is pretty well prepped to where I need it to be. And from here, we can kind of speed up the drying process a bit with the hairdryer. Again, you don't want it to be on really, really high heat, just sort of a medium heat. And again, this will just sort of like, because I'm very impatient, anytime I can get to speed things along, I like that. And just get your hairdryer. So the screen is completely dry right now, and a great way to really test it is to hold it up to the light. And you really want it to be completely opaque. You don't want to see any light shining through. I would even go outside and hold it up to sunlight. Again, you really want to make sure that there are no holes in there. Otherwise, then we have to go back, get the blocking fluid, and might as well do it right the first time. So from here, now we need to block off the rest of the screen with masking tape, like I said before. So here we can get this wide tape and put it down. This again just ensures that no ink will be getting onto our artwork. Put that down. Now we do that all the way around the entire piece. Also, what we need to do is right where the screen meets the wood with masking tape, we need to create, as you can see here, a little bit of a well. Okay, so the front part of our screen is now complete. Then we have to flip it over and tape the back as well. This just, again, is a double insurance just to make sure that no ink will get onto our artwork. It's better to be really safe than sorry. Okay, wow, so screen is now complete. Okay, so at this stage, we can go and we could start silk screening, or I have two other screens here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape them off, and those will be or almost act as background colors, okay? And for this one, I'm going to do something really, really simple. I'm just going to get masking tape, and I'm going to use the masking tape as my shape. So again, I'm going to be completely random with this. So here's my shape where I want the ink to go through in a solid way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape out the rest of this screen like I just did to the other one. And the same thing with these screens as well. You want to, again, make sure everything is taped out. And we're going to create that little well, like I said, on the side as well. So everything is mashed out properly. Even though this is just one of the background screens, again, it's better to be safe because now I have a really good solid sort of exposed area right here, and I know that everything else is really well protected, that no other ink is going to spoil our artwork. So we have this one done. Now I've got a third screen because we're going to do another color. So I'm going to have 2 colored backgrounds and then the fish on top. So for this one, I'm just going to do another random shape. I would suggest probably going to a dollar store, somewhere inexpensive, to get your masking tape. You need a lot. Okay, so I think we've used all the masking tape in the entire world. We've got this one shape that's going to happen in one color. We have this other shape that's going to happen in another color. And again, placement, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can kind of play around with that. And then we have our fish that's going to go on top of that. So that's how we're going to sort of layer it up. So before we get to any of that, I got to clear off the entire table, put some paper down, and then we can start screening. Okay, so we've got everything here. We've got our screens standing by, our colors, and our paper. So for this, first thing we're going to do is we're going to just use one of our screens, and we're going to screen out the one color. So we're ready to go. We're going to load our ink in. I like to load in a generous amount right at the very top because we're going to be pulling towards us, always towards us, never away. And when you are screening, once you start, you have to follow through in a full motion. If you start and stop and do things like that, you'll sort of, that'll transfer, that jiggly motion will transfer, and you'll get sort of lines through it, which we don't want. We want it to look like it's a big, solid, opaque image. So here we go. And when we reveal it, see, it's like a perfect orange. So from there, let's continue and do some more. What we need to do again is load up our screen at the very top, right? Got a lot here, so this is good. And positioning it on our paper and follow through. There we go, number 2. I think it's kind of awesome if you, say, are doing a project like this. If you just do something like this is great. I like using my art and giving it to people as gifts, or if I'm doing something, a lot of times when I am painting or I am screening and I'm thinking about somebody, or thinking about me with something they would like, maybe in the colors that they like. I have good friends of mine, Marion and Andrew, they love orange, so I would do this for them and just maybe, you can just kind of frame this. I mean, this was kind of cool, right? Sign it, frame it. Say it's really famous. I don't know, who knows? But we're going to layer our silk screening. And for this, I'm going to use some sort of a bright bluish. And I'm going to put a little bit of white screen paint in there, some screening fluid, and mix it up. I just want to mix sort of a lighter blue because I'm kind of envisioning maybe the fish is going to be in pink. Maybe I'm going to offset it in black. You'll kind of see. So I'm trying to layer these colors together. And let's see what's going to happen. Yeah, I think this is an awesome color. Okay, so we're ready. We don't want to be distracted. And also is another thing, because we have this other piece here, once we start to screen and we pick it up and I go to another piece, there will be a lot of ink on this. So you don't really want to sort of pick your screen up, reposition it, pick it up, reposition it, because you may start to get ink and spoil the piece that's underneath. So you can kind of see here, the cool thing, like I said, it's silk screen, so we'll be able to see, and you can move it around, where we're going to deposit this blue color, right? So it'll just be just in here. So move it around, find a great spot, and let's have a look and see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so there's our first one. See, it's vivid, right? We're gonna let this dry. Go to our next one. And for this one, because each one I want to be different, I'm gonna position the screen differently on each one. And like I said, once you lay it down, commit to laying it down and don't move it around, because there'll be ink underneath that may spoil the orange piece underneath. And again, we're always gonna lay our ink at the top, and we're gonna pull straight down. Okay, and there's our next one, number 2. And here's number 3. Okay, and boop. There we go. Now comes the big moment. Now we're going to screen our star. And our star is this really cool fish. So again, for this, because we sort of laid down our different colors that we have here, we can sort of, I don't know if you can kind of see that. You can kind of see a little bit behind, you know, and then, I don't know, just sort of see what you think would be best. Although each one's going to be different, you kind of want to just play around and kind of see what would work best. And like I said, once we have this screen now, we've done all this work with this screen's going to stay like this, and I can use it 100 times, which is fantastic. We're going to do the fish, first off, I think, in fuchsia. Okay, we're going to load the ink in the back. And we're ready. Cool. Looks great. What do you think? Okay, let's do another. This sort of has a really kind of cool retro vibe, doesn't it? Okay, we're going to load our ink in the front. And okay. Pull that through. The colors are awesome. See what I mean by by all the work that we did for the masking fluid. So right now, there's no ink that's bleeding through. So the fact that we did all that work off the top really sort of pays off in the end. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Right, and then where you could position them, every single one is going to be completely different. So from here, guys, we're going to let these 3 dry. I'm going to rinse out this screen, and we're going to do it again, I think in black. It'll be awesome. Okay, so I've cleaned my squeegee. In this case as well, we cleaned all the ink out of our screen here, and then I retaped it all. So from here, like I said, we have our pieces done. We could easily be finished here. Why not push it even further? So what we're going to do, I think, is maybe screen the fish but offset it in black. And what I mean by that is, you can see here, can you see the fish behind? We're going to sort of register it and then just slightly offset it. So what I do is I line the fish up so you can see the pink behind it. So that's exactly where we screened the pink. And then we're just going to go boop and move it. And what'll happen is it'll look like a drop shadow or sort of a highlight. And this is kind of interesting because we can sort of play around with it on each image. Okay, we're good. So once I've positioned it, like I said, leave it. We're going to load our ink into the top. Okay, we have our squeegee, and we're good to go. We're going to release it, and see what I mean? So you can see the image, how it just sort of like pops from the fish, almost has a sort of interesting sort of dimension to it. And again, every single one's going to be different because we won't be able to register it perfectly, which is cool. That's what I said, it's one of a kind. And when you're doing this, you can kind of see through the screen. It's going to be a bit difficult. And then once it's down, leave it. You can't move it because there will be ink underneath that and it'll just disrupt it. And you really don't want to mess around and ruin all that work you just did. There we go. Again, they almost look similar, but every single one's going to have just a tiny bit of a subtle difference. And this one, let's do completely different. Let's bring the fish way up. Why not? And because this is my last one, I'm going to do it again. There, see? Now I did that, got a few on here, got some splatters going here. Since I have this already going, keep it going. While we're at it, might as well add some orange. Why not, right? Now we're going to let these guys dry, and I'm going to wash out my screen. Okay, so we've got them. They're pretty well dry. So you can really see how easy silk screening is, and this guy's really cool as well. You know what I mean? Like you can splatter it. We could continue and push it further if we want with other colors, but I'm kind of liking where this guy is right now. I think he's awesome. So I hope this inspires your inner Andy Warhol. Silk screen, like I said, is really, really simple. Find all the supplies at your art supply store. I'm going to hang this puppy up, and we'll see you soon in the studio.